The rain had been falling for 3 days straight when I first saw her. Not the gentle kind of rain that washed the dust from city streets. This rain was heavy and cold, drumming endlessly on the metal roof of the abandoned relay station where I'd been stationed for the past 6 months. My name is Daniel Carter, former reconnaissance officer for the Terran Colonial Fleet. Former being the important word. After the war with the Xylar Dominion ended, a lot of soldiers like me were quietly reassigned to places nobody cared about anymore. Old listening posts, forgotten border systems, supply depots waiting to rust into history. Station Epsilon 19 was one of those places. One small building on a lonely moon orbiting a gas giant no one had bothered naming. Most days were silent. The sensors picked up nothing except distant asteroid drift and the occasional solar flare. I spent my time repairing broken equipment, logging empty reports, and trying not to think too much about the war. That night, though, something changed. The perimeter alarm beeped. I frowned and leaned toward the sensor screen. Movement. About 60 meters from the station entrance. At first, I thought it was a glitch. The storm outside was strong enough to scramble readings. But the signal kept moving. Slowly. Toward the station. My hand instinctively reached for the pulse rifle hanging beside the door. Great, I muttered. Just what I need. I opened the outer hatch and stepped into the rain. The wind howled across the rocky plains of the moon, carrying sheets of icy water that stung my face. My helmet visor dimmed automatically against the glare of lightning flashing across the sky. Then I saw her. A figure walking through the storm. Tall. Slender. Unsteady. She wasn't wearing environmental armor, just a thin, dark cloak that clung to her body in the rain. And she was definitely not human. My finger tightened on the rifle trigger, but I didn't fire, because she wasn't attacking. She was barely standing. She stumbled once, then collapsed onto one knee about 20 meters away. I hesitated. Protocol said I should treat any unknown alien as a potential threat. But something about the way she moved, the way she struggled just to stay upright, that wasn't a threat. That was someone dying. I lowered the rifle and ran toward her. Up close, I could see her clearly. Her skin shimmered faintly silver beneath the rain. Long dark hair clung to her shoulders, and delicate lines of glowing blue traced faint patterns along her arms. Her eyes were wide and luminous. And terrified. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. Please. Her translator device crackled, struggling to process the language. Help me? I didn't hesitate. I slung her arm over my shoulder and half carried her back toward the station. She weighed less than I expected. Too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Inside, the warmth of the station wrapped around us. I helped her sit on a bench while the auto heater kicked in. She shivered violently. Easy, I said. You're safe. I grabbed a thermal blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then I poured a cup of heated water from the ration heater and handed it to her. She held the cup with both hands, staring at the rising steam like it was the most precious thing in the universe. After a moment, she drank. Slowly, carefully, like someone who had forgotten what warmth felt like. When she finished, she looked up at me. Thank you, human. I shrugged. You're welcome. Though you might want to explain why an alien is wandering around a classified Terran outpost in the middle of a storm. She was silent for a moment. Then she asked quietly, Is this Terran territory? Yeah. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. Good. That was not the answer I expected. Why? She looked at me with those glowing eyes. Because your kind are the only ones who might listen. Her name was Lyris. At least that's the closest translation my console could manage. She belonged to a species called the Iliari, a civilization older than most of the galactic powers combined. I'd heard the name once before during the war. They were a neutral race. Observers. Historians of the galaxy. They didn't fight. They watched. Which made what she told me next even harder to believe. "They're hunting me," she said quietly. "Who is?" "The Dominion." I frowned. The Xylar Dominion had been the enemy humanity fought during the war. But the war was over. At least, that's what the official report said. "They shouldn't even be in this sector," I said. "They are." Her voice carried a quiet certainty that made my stomach tighten. "They followed me here." I leaned back in my chair. Okay, new question. Why would the Dominion be chasing a historian? Lyris hesitated. Then she looked straight at me. "Because of what I know about humans." That got my attention. "What about us?" For a moment, she didn't answer. Instead, she studied me like a scientist examining a rare specimen. Then she said softly, "They were meant to walk beside you." I blinked. "What?" She gestured vaguely toward the stars beyond the station walls. "All civilizations evolve through conflict, through struggle, through growth." "Yeah," I said slowly. "Sounds about right." "But humans," she continued, "we're different." "How?" "You change others." I frowned. "Pretty sure most species say we just cause trouble." She shook her head. "No. You inspire." Her glowing eyes seemed to brighten slightly. "Wherever humans travel, alliances form. Divided races cooperate. Wars end." I snorted. "You clearly haven't watched our news feeds." "I have studied your history." She leaned forward. "Your species should have destroyed itself centuries ago. Yet instead, you built something extraordinary." I didn't know what to say to that. So, I changed the subject. "Okay, let's assume you're right. Why does the Dominion care?" Her expression darkened. "Because they learned the same thing I did." The room felt colder suddenly. They realized that if humanity continues spreading, the Dominion will lose its power. I felt a slow chill creep down my spine. "So, they want to what?" "Contain us." Her answer was barely a whisper. "No." She looked directly at me. "They want to erase you." 3 hours later, the sensors screamed. Multiple ships entering orbit. Dominion signatures. I stared at the screen. Damn it. Lyris stepped beside me. "They found us." "Yeah," I said grimly. "Looks that way." The tactical display showed 3 warships descending through the storm clouds. Station Epsilon 19 had no defenses. No reinforcements. Just one aging soldier and a half-functional relay tower. "Can we escape?" she asked. I shook my head. "Only one shuttle. And it won't outrun a Dominion cruiser." The ships were already deploying landing craft. I checked my rifle. "Guess we're doing this the hard way." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" I smiled faintly. "Humans don't run when someone shows up at our door with bad intentions." Minutes later, the first dropships landed outside. Armored Dominion soldiers poured into the rain. Dozens of them. The station shook as plasma fire slammed into the outer walls. Lyris stood behind me, watching in stunned silence as I barricaded the entrance. "You cannot stop them," she said quietly. "Nope." I loaded another power cell into my rifle. "But I can slow them down." The first breach charge detonated. Metal screamed as the door buckled inward. Dominion soldiers rushed through the smoke. And the fight began. The station corridors echoed with pulse rifle fire. One soldier fell, then another. But more kept coming. Too many. I was forced back step by step until we reached the central control room. My rifle clicked empty. I dropped it and drew my sidearm. "Any brilliant ideas?" I asked Lyris. She looked at the communications console, then at me. "Yes." The Dominion commander entered the room moments later. Tall, armored, surrounded by soldiers. He stopped when he saw us. "Iliari historian," he said coldly. "You have caused considerable inconvenience." Lyris stepped forward. "I will come with you." I stared at her. "What?" She glanced at me briefly, then back at the commander. "But first, allow me one final transmission." He hesitated, then nodded. "Very well." She moved to the console. Her fingers danced across the controls. The relay tower outside activated. A powerful signal burst into deep space. The commander frowned. "What did you send?" Lyris turned slowly. "A message." "To whom?" She looked at me, then answered softly. "To humanity." 2 days later, the sky filled with ships. Human ships. Dozens. Then hundreds. The Terran fleet had received her message. And they had come. The Dominion forces were wiped out within hours. When the last enemy ship fled the system, silence returned to the station. I stood outside with Lyris, watching the Terran fleet hover like a protective shield in orbit. "You knew they would come," I said. She nodded. "Yes." "Why?" She looked at the stars thoughtfully. Then she said the words I would never forget. "They were meant to walk beside you," the alien woman said softly. "Not rule you. Not destroy you." She glanced at the human ships above us. "But stand with you." I watched the fleet lights flicker across the storm clouds. And for the first time since the war ended, I felt hope. Because humanity wasn't alone in the galaxy anymore. And maybe, just maybe, we never had been.